Boxing Info, I'm your host, The Islander. And by the way, for all you smart guys out there, yes, the polo shirt's here, no jacket on the chair, it's still summertime. Listen, I've been away for a long time, good reason. If you have an infant that screams, a newborn that screams constantly, you'd be at your wit's end also. And today's kind of a glum day. There's almost a hollow feeling inside me as I sent my oldest child off to the government to be educated, and all of the news talk radio shows I listen to say it's like one of the worst, specifically one of them says it's like one of the worst things you could do, and now I'm feeling some serious buyer's remorse in that. I didn't think I'd feel it, but it's something not right. It's almost like when you're a kid and you do something wrong and you got this real hollow feeling, you're going to be in trouble for it later. I don't know about most of you, but that happened to me several times. And when I put my little girl on the bus this morning, I walked away thinking to myself, did I just do the right thing? What did I just do? So anyway, neither here nor there. I was going through my mind a list of things to talk about and how far back I could go and still even make it feel relevant. So I'm going to do a quick recap and then go in depth on certain things that are in the news lately. I mean, I can't promise this is going to be like a twice a week kind of thing anymore, but and the other thing too is the computers are what. First it was the camera, and then it was the computers that are like making this a multi-hour process. What I found out is with a Core Duo computer, extracting the video onto the computer and then uploading it to the internet is about 10 times faster. So we're going to try that this morning. Again, this is the Monday morning quarterback show, so to speak. Alright, I did not do a video since Andre Ward throttled Alan Green. I don't believe so. If I did, maybe I'm mistaken, I don't know. But in any event, what I was going to say is Alan Green talked a big game and didn't walk such a big game, and Ward dominated. And Ward, what is unique about him is that he keeps changing his style just slightly per opponent. I know a lot of people didn't like the wrestling and grabbing, and some of you compared it to Bernard Hopkins. But the thing about it is, to me, it shows the mark of an excellent fighter who can change to suit the opponent and dominate, whether it's to outspeed Mikkel Kessler in exchanges, whether it's to rough up Alan Green and prevent him from using his long arms to do damage. Ward knows what to do, and his people know what to do. My question for Ward and his people is, what's going to happen when he leaves the comfy confines of the West Coast or the comfy confines of the United States? The person with the home court advantage in this tournament has won every bout. Just plain and simple. And let me get to my channel here and see what it said the information on the last video was, just so I because I've got a list here that I'm going to your comments, blah 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 blah, boosh boosh, all that stuff. Okay, so anyway, Andre Ward's in the semifinals. He's in the driver's seat. As I shut my own video off here, and let me see if there was any info on it, because I probably should have did this ahead of time. I'm just trying to get this up and running as much as I can. All right, the Yankee Stadium bout with Miguel Cotto, looking impressive against Yuri Foreman. A fight that was stopped more for a knee injury from Yuri Foreman in the 9th round. He took some brutal punishment from Cotto. Cotto looks like he's tightened up some of the flaws in his game. And again, you really can't tell this with Cotto fighting a guy who really can't hurt him. The fight at 154 pounds, as you could see when you saw these two guys next to each other, Cotto is not a 154-pounder. He is an average-sized welterweight at best. His life in that division is going to be short-lived, I believe. Just my thoughts on that. But a very impressive bounce-back performance by Cotto after taking 2 hellacious beatings in the past 2 years. Okay. Now we turn our attention to the Floyd Mayweather-Manny Pacquiao negotiations, debacle, whatever you want to call it. I had a guy out to my house to do some work, DirecTV, and he told me he was from the Philippines, and I asked him if he was a Pacquiao fan. He's like, yeah, and we started talking about this subject. And I said to him, he goes, Mayweather just doesn't want to fight him. And I was like, I'm beginning to think that too. I was like, because you put this list of crazy demands that go far and above what the commission requires. I know a lot of you are going to say, we got to clean up the sport, and all this other kind of crap. You know what? there is no cleaning up the sport because the sport is a global sport. Each commission has their own jurisdiction and they're going to do what they want. But leave it as it may, Floyd Mayweather made his demands. He's the cash cow, according in his own little mind, and he's where all fights lead to in his tiny little mind. So with that said, he lists these demands, and Pacquiao says, no, I'm not going to have blood drawn more than 30 days, inside 30 days before the fight. So the fight's scrapped. Mayweather ends up fighting Mosley in what I imagine was a success. I didn't see the final pay-per-view numbers, but I would imagine it was a very successful event. And Pacquiao fights Clottey at Cowboy Stadium in what was a very successful event. And both of them make an 8-digit payday. Plain and simple. The thing about it is now, is that the world is demanding this fight, and Pacquiao is the one who relents and says, I will go ahead and submit to his agreement to take the blood test up to 14 days before the fight, which was a big no-no before. So he's, the money and the demand is greater, and this is a really high-stakes game of chicken is what it is. That's what this is. It's a high-stakes game of chicken. Somebody out there on my channel mentioned that this is the Cold War between Top Rank and Golden Boy. Here's the deal, folks. If that is, I mean, I kind of side with the Top Rank folks, because you notice we're still getting fights, don't you? I mean, it may be worthless to see Pacquiao fight Margarito, but at least we're getting to see him fight. We don't know when we're going to see Floyd Mayweather next, and not only that, he's really not Golden Boy property. This is a scheme. Golden Boy wants to bring down Top Rank any way they can, and by beating their best fighter and failing to do it over and over again is frustrating them. And when we get to more about this, because the thing is, a lot of you are so hyped about the Juan Diaz and Juan Manuel Marquez card, and I sit and watch it and go, I watched the 4 fights they showed. Predictable, 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 predictable is what I said to myself. And we'll get to that later, because I didn't predict them all right in my mind, but at the same time, it's all predictable. And the days of having a loaded pay-per-view card that's worth $50 died back in the 1990s. And I know I'm just ranting and raving now, but in any event, let's get back to Pacquiao Mayweather. Alright, so Pacquiao agrees that he will submit to this. Negotiations going back and forth between 3 parties. Top Rank, Ted DeBuff and Bob Arum, with Golden Boy's peoples, Richard Schaefer and Oscar De La Hoya, and with HBO. And all this time, nobody in the Mayweather camp, according to them, knows anything about this. Nobody reads a newspaper, nobody listens to TV, nobody reads the internet, nobody watches videos, nobody does anything in their camp. The Mayweather kids have every game known to man in their mansion, yet nobody's heard anything in the news about these negotiations. Nobody's read it in the magazine and newspapers. Nobody knows anything about it. No. That's what they're expecting us to believe. And I think Die All Day put it best, or maybe it was Avellino. I think it was Die All Day, Avellino, Ring King. You want to make us believe that you've not heard anything about this, and what is really tasteless and disgusting is that De La Hoya and Golden Boy get on board with this and say, "Oh no, he was on vacation. He knows nothing about it. He was in Puerto Rico. He was at my place in Puerto Rico. He had no knowledge of this." I mean, how do you look yourself in the mirror? I mean, how do you man up to something like this? I mean, how do you? This is what always made me want to see De La Hoya get his face kicked in when he was fighting. He's the biggest phony in the world, and this is a bunch of smoke and mirror phoniness. So the thing is that the fighters are really, the biggest group of fighters are in the Top Rank stable, so to speak. Not all of them, but if you look at blockbuster fights to be made, Margarito Cotto, Cotto Clottey, Clottey Margarito, Pacquiao Cotto, Pacquiao Clottey, Pacquiao Margarito. There's 6 fights that were made that were all inside Top Rank. There was no trouble in making them. It's a round robin of these fighters. So what I'm saying is, who really needs Mayweather? I mean, we're still going to see these blockbuster fights. I know we want to see the best fight the best, the absolute best. But look, the guy's demands were given into. And now he doesn't want to fight for another year or 2 years. I'm actually fine with it. I'll tell you why. Because in his last 2 fights, I noticed that he either A, chose not to use his legs, or B, he can't use his legs like he used to. And the more time that passes, the worse it's going to be. The worse the beating is going to be for him when he finally gets his beating. That's all I'm saying. You know, Pacquiao is of the mold of Hopkins, who is going to basically give you the honest effort. And I'm saying that back Hopkins Trinidad kind of time. Give you the honest effort. Mayweather has been stealing from us. I've been saying that for years now. He has been stealing from us. You let him steal from you. I don't. So the longer you put it off, the better for us. At least for me anyway, because you know, the guy from DirecTV was asking me, he goes, he's trying to protect his legacy. I was like, what legacy? I was like, what? He doesn't have a legacy. I was like, you know, fighting the Carlos Famosa Hernandez, that's a legacy? He's going to live off the Diego Corrales win for the rest of his life? He barely beat Oscar De La Hoya. Barely. He had a life and death struggle with Ricky Hatton for 6 rounds before he pulled away from him. And Pacquiao blew both those guys away. So, and I said that to the DirecTV guy. He's like, yeah, that's true. He goes, you know, the real fans know that. And I was like, yeah, the real fans do know that. So that brings us to Pacquiao now signed to fight Margarito. You know, Margarito fought his comeback fight and looked just what I would call ho-hum. Oh, there's another one I forgot about this. JCC Jr. versus Duddy. And, you know, Margarito has never looked, I mean, he's just looked exciting at welterweight, limited but exciting. He's never looked spectacular at junior middleweight, ever, in the time I've seen him fight. And even in this fight, when he's just trying to get rounds in and just trying to box a little and, you know, not get cut, not get, you know, anything crazy happen, he, you know, he's been off for almost, a year and a half, almost 2 years. I can grant him that, but the weight is not good for him. He's a big welterweight. This is one of those situations that a lot of people hate, where a big fighter unnaturally sweats down to a smaller weight and is dominant. And for those of you who are going to blame Margarito for that, I say, you know, don't look too far further. Oscar De La Hoya won an Olympic gold medal at lightweight. At lightweight, I watched it. He won it at lightweight. He turns pro, and they deliberately have him sweat down to 130 pounds, so he's fighting guys that he's like good 6 inches taller than. His shoulders are a monster, broader, wider than these guys. They deliberately kept him small to dominate smaller fighters. Not once did they try to make a fight with Azuma Nelson in that division. He fought all the paper champions in the WBO, and you know, in both the junior lightweight and the lightweight divisions. It wasn't until the lightweight division they actually fought Gennaro Hernandez and Rafael Ruelas back-to-back, which I'll give you full credit for those fights. They were spectacular, and that's what launched his career. But what I'm saying is Margarito is not going to be effective at 154. I'm not so sure Pacquiao, you know, Roach is predicting a knockout. You know, yeah, I could kind of see it if he beats him up like Mosley did, but I don't think Pacquiao is necessarily as physically strong as Mosley is to move, put damage on Pacquiao. It's more the stinging variety. And Margarito, if he's going to stop Margarito, imagine it's going to look like Costa Zoo when he fought Miguel Angel Gonzalez and he fought Rafael Ruelas. Both very durable guys that I wouldn't imagine when they first fought Costa Zoo they would probably lose the fight, but by a wide decision, and he stopped both of them. It's the same thing here, that the speed and the technique of Pacquiao is going to overcome, you know, I hate to say this, even the heart and the determination of the warrior. The only thing is, you know, the mind plays tricks on us, because at certain times a fighter looks like they're done and they get the, you know, Margarito's fighting for a couple of things. One, to redeem himself from this fiasco with the foreign objects in his wraps. He's fighting to redeem himself and to clear his name. This is just like Roberto Duran fighting to redeem himself after the No Mas fiasco in New Orleans against Sugar Ray Leonard. So he's got that motivation to redeem himself. Also the carrot. You beat the best fighter pound for pound in the world. I guarantee you, if he beats Pacquiao and there's not a rematch clause, Floyd Mayweather comes out and says, I'll finally fight Margarito. Because he looks like to him it looks like it's easy pickings. Mark my words on this. Mark my words. It ain't going to happen, but mark my words that that's the scenario that's going to play itself out. So we got Pacquiao, Margarito, which it won't be very much different than, it shouldn't be very much different than Pacquiao and Clottey, except that Margarito will take chances, which are probably going to get him hurt doing it. Okay, if some of you paid for this pay-per-view, maybe you thought it was probably worth it. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. taking on John Duddy, and what I thought was a kind of a risky fight, but since Jr. has started working with Freddie Roach, I saw some definite improvements in his technique, as most of you have, and I think that I wouldn't say he's got the same future his father had, but working with Freddie Roach and honing these skills is going to prolong his career to be a more productive career. He was on a one-way ticket to disaster before. I mean, a one-way ticket to disaster. No discipline in training, obviously. No discipline in the ring. He's had some real sloppy, awful performances, and this is the tightest, performance I've seen him against at least better competition. It's not A-level competition, but it's definitely better, dangerous competition. Good win for Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. John Duddy, we knew this day was coming. I didn't expect it to be this one, but we knew it was coming. Another little Friday night fights that I missed out on reporting on was Zab Judah scoring a spectacular third-round stoppage over Jose Armando Santa Cruz, former figurative lightweight titleist. I say that because I thought he thumped Casamayor just as bad as Robert Guerrero did and didn't get a decision. Judah, again, this is a thing of discipline. And it's never been a question of his training. It's never been a question of his preparation. It's been a question of his mental discipline in the ring. If he can stay focused and not get caught up in the big moment, and not get caught up in the pomp and circumstance, the thing about him is he comes from a tough neighborhood in Brooklyn, and there's this thing about this group of guys like Mike Tyson and Riddick Bowe and even Fernando Vargas, who's from Oxnard. They kind of cohese together in this big posse kind of thing, this big tough guy posse kind of thing. And if he forgets about all that and concentrates on the straight and narrow, he is an extremely dangerous boxer. He always has been. He always will be if he can just keep it together. Good win for Zab Judah. I was very impressed. A little bit before that, though, Timothy Bradley moved up to welterweight and fought Luis Carlos Abregu in a fight that went the way I thought it would go. It was a high-contact fight. Bradley looked good at times. Bradley got hit a lot of times, and Bradley felt the power of Abregu. He's an average-sized junior welterweight, Bradley. He has no business fighting in the welterweight division. I know he's doing this to try to attract a fight with Manny Pacquiao. It's not happening right now. There are too many damn good fights, especially with Alexander and Khan and Maidana and Victor Ortiz and all those guys at 140, the hottest division in boxing, arguably, for him. So Bradley did his part in paving a way to further unification of that division, looking decently in 140, even though he was fighting at 147, looked decent against Abregu. Abregu put in an honest effort, and I think that, again, Timothy Bradley, I'm going to get to this, a little bit of a prediction here going forward. All right, the 4-fight pay-per-view card from Golden Boy that everybody was so hyped about, and I'm sorry 3 times over that I couldn't get a video up in time to preview it, so I'm going to review it now. A lot of you have getting your rocks off with Dmitry Pirog scoring a 5th-round knockout over Danny Jacobs. Before the fight, if you would have asked me, I would have picked Jacobs to win the fight, either by a wide decision or by a stoppage. It's not that I bought into the hype. It's that I know what I've seen, and the talent is there. I don't know whether they're saying there was some distractions with a death in his family and this and that. I don't think that would have changed the outcome of this fight. But at the same time, I really think that he was put in too easy for too long. And I think that every 5 to 7 fights, in my amateur opinion, every 5 to 7 fights, you've got to have a step up in class. Some of you who do training and stuff like that might argue it's every 5 fights, but every 5 to 7 fights, you can't go 15 fights or 20 fights without having a step up in competition. Just because these guys' records are getting better doesn't mean anything. And getting a guy who's a former world champion, not that this is the case, who's really beaten down, is not the substitute for fighting another up-and-coming fighter. And that's what this was. This was the crossroads of 2 up-and-comers is what this was. And Pirog, I think mentally was more ready for this. It's not to say that Jacobs won't beat him in a rematch. It's just that Pirog and his people found holes in Jacobs' game, and they're going to have to go back to the drawing board, because this Oscar De La Hoya, prospect thing, it ain't working out right. They have, like a lot of you have said, if they're not stealing a prospect away from another promoter, they've yet to take a 0-0 prospect. Again, Diolde, Avellino, Gill, AZNVEDZ, and Ring Warrior, even Hitman Conan, all of you have all put this. They have not taken a 0-0 prospect to the promised land yet. And it's because they keep protecting their investments. And to me, they're a second-rate promotional company. They're a B-level promotional company. I think I have more respect for Gary Shaw and more respect for Cedric Kushner and more respect for Lou DiBella than I do for the Golden Boy machine. I mean, the Golden Boy machine is kind of like the Obama machine. It's all smoke and mirrors is what it is. And we're feeling the effects of it now. Whether you agree with me or not on it, and I'm not starting a political war out there, but if you believe, ask yourself this. If you like the change that's happened in the last 18 months, be satisfied with it. I won't say anymore, but I personally not too happy with it. And it's all a bunch of smoke and mirrors is what it is. Same thing with the Golden Boy machine. It's a machine. It's a political machine is what it is. And they suck us in. And you know what? I refuse to buy it. I didn't buy it when he was a fighter. I mean, believe me, my happiest and saddest day was when Pacquiao kicked the living crap out of that guy for 8 rounds. All right, the card. Puro KOs Danny Jacobs in 5. Jacobs gets up and argues he can continue. He was getting tagged with that right hand all night long. I mean, what more can you ask for? He found the hole in the arsenal. I mean, and landed it until he wore Jacobs out and knocked him down flat on his back. Big surprise. I would have picked Jacobs to win the fight. All right, Jorge Linares bouncing back from, as Diolde said, his concussion and his loss 3 fights ago to Salgado. Scored an impressive 10-round rout over Rocky Juarez, including a knockdown. I've never seen Rocky Juarez knocked off his feet. Here's the deal. It's the end of the road for Juarez at this level. I'm sorry. I mean, he is as honest a fighter as you can get. Reluctant to let his hands go at times. But his chances against the likes of Chris John, and especially against Marco Antonio Barrera the first time, if he would have just let his hands go a little bit more, he would have got the job done. Against the Jorge Barrioses of the world, he's golden. But, again, this is the end of the road for 2 of these fighters on this card. Solid win for Linares. Again, the weight may have made a difference too, because Linares is naturally bigger than Juarez, and Juarez really belongs at the 126-pound weight limit, but he wasn't going to win this fight even at 126 pounds. Robert Guerrero. This is another one I would have got wrong, because I thought maybe Casamayor had one more fight left in him, and it's kind of this slick guy against a slick guy kind of a thing, and that's where Casamayor can shine. But Guerrero, again being inspired by his wife, who is sick again and constantly fighting this battle with leukemia, was inspired and fought the best I've ever seen him fight. And never mind the fights against Martin Honorio and all those other ones. This Malcolm Klassen, this was the best I think I've seen Guerrero in the face of the competition. Now understand, Casamayor finished. He's done. He doesn't get to be on a pay-per-view card anymore. A lot of wasted time with bad management and bad promotional and all that other kind of stuff. I'm sorry for him. But Guerrero, I don't know how long he's going to be able to keep this run going at 140 pounds, because there are dangerous sharks out there. And he's not going to outslick Amir Khan. He's not going to, outrumble Timothy Bradley, and I doubt he's going to take care of, be able to stay away from Devin Alexander for too long either. But a good win for Robert Guerrero nonetheless. The main event, Juan Manuel Marquez won a unanimous 12-round decision over Juan Diaz. What else did you expect? I mean, again, Juan Diaz has limitations, and in my mind, he's lost 4 consecutive fights because he didn't beat Malignaggi the first time. So he's been knocked out by Diaz. Should have lost at home against Malignaggi. lost clearly, just as clearly against Malignaggi in Chicago, and now he's lost this fight. He's lost 4 in a row in my mind. And really 5 of his last 6, even though it's only 4 of his last 6. You know, the better skilled fighter, won again. And this is another case of the fact that Marquez knew that Diaz really couldn't hurt him. He could take chances when he had to, he boxed when he had to, and the skill set, Marquez is here, Diaz is here. And there's nothing to bridge that gap. You know, I was reading into the fact that maybe Diaz had a chance because, you know, they were both coming off, you know, significant losses. Marquez at the hands of Mayweather, but let's put it into perspective. He was fighting 17 pounds heavier than he had ever fought before, and at the same time, well, maybe not 17, yeah, something like that, 42, 7 pounds heavier. 7 pounds heavier at 142 pounds. And Mayweather, he couldn't hurt Mayweather, but he made a good, he put a good account of himself out there, a good, honest account of himself. He never stopped trying. He took everything Mayweather had to throw at him, and he landed on Mayweather a few times. He just couldn't hurt him and do damage. And Mayweather knew he couldn't. So it's the same thing here, because Diaz doesn't have a punch, and, you know, the difference in skill sets here. The difference in skill set between Mayweather and Marquez isn't that broad. It's the fact there's a size difference. And an awesome comeback win for Juan Manuel Marquez. I have to say I'm pretty proud of him. At his advanced age, he's still able to get himself up for training and get himself up on fight night and come through when his promoter, who is Golden Boy, asks him to. A great fight. I should say it wasn't a great fight, it was a great effort by both guys and a really good win for Marquez. Now last weekend, or I should say 2 days ago, Devin Alexander, who if I didn't cover it, scored a unification 8th round stoppage. It was going to be a knockout over Juan Urango back way when to take Juan Urango's IBF title and add it to his WBC title. Now, Andres Koltenik, former WBA titleist, who had that title for one fight when he, I guess, beat the living hell out of Frankie Gavin. I think it was Frankie Gavin. And then lost it in a wide decision to Amir Khan. You got to compare these two fights because Koltenik is who he is. He's got skills, he's got heart, and he's not going to stop trying. So you have Amir Khan, who basically runs away from, basically routs him, outboxes him, and then you got Alexander, who does the same thing for 5 rounds, and then the fight's on. And I believe Koltenik had Alexander in trouble a couple of times in the fight. Took Alexander to deep waters where he hadn't been before into trouble. And I know a lot of you thought that Koltenik deserved to win the fight. I thought it could go either way. 8 rounds to 4 for Alexander, BS. 7 rounds to 5, maybe 7 rounds to 5 for Koltenik. 6-5-1. I like the guy that comes forward. I like the guy that's aggressive. I like the guy that makes the fight. All right. I cannot forego what Alexander did in the first 5 rounds and say, well, he won another 2 rounds and that's the fight. Because when a guy comes on amazingly strong at the end, like Koltenik did, it's hard to dismiss what you've just seen. It's kind of like Muhammad Ali, when he'd basically be doing nothing for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and all of a sudden do razzle-dazzle for the last 30 seconds of a round and steal rounds. And Sugar Ray Leonard made the whole fight against Marvin Hagler doing that. It's the same concept, so to speak, if you understand what I'm saying, that what you've seen last is what leaves the impression in your mind. I'm looking past that and saying, I'll give Alexander the benefit of the doubt and say he did enough early on and he hung on at the end, figuratively, to pull it out. That's what I'm saying. I'm just gonna, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna leave it at that and say, that's what's, it is what it is, and we can look forward to Alexander against Bradley. Whereas I thought before these 2 fights, Bradley might have the edge on Alexander might have the edge on Bradley. I've changed my mind. I think it's a pick'em fight, but I think Bradley has faced stiffer competition. Especially, Kendall Holt is better than any fighter that Alexander the Great has fought. There's no 2 ways about it. And Bradley getting off the deck twice against Holt is testament to what he'll go through to win a fight. if I'm forced to make a prediction right now, I'm going to say Bradley squeaks by him, because Bradley is going to put the hurt on Alexander, and he's going to get in his kitchen. It's whether Bradley can take the, the stuff coming back, the fire, fire that's coming back at him, which is going to, they're interesting questions. They're interesting questions. It's not going to take 5 rounds for Alexander to get in Alexander's kitchen. It ain't. Now, can Alexander do the same thing as Holt and catch Bradley and put him away? Those are the significant questions that need to be answered. Let me go real quick to the schedule, and I'll do a little bit of preview. This video is already running pretty long, but I knew it was going to be. That was a nice picture of Bradley Alexander with that cut over his right eye. Let's see what's coming up this week. ESPN's had some pretty. I must have missed the Brady Prescott Pacquiao fight the other night. Oh well. And Escalante as well. Let's go forward to the 13th. ESPN 2, Ontario, California. If this is still on, Chris Arreola taking on Manuel Quezada, 12 rounds heavyweight, headlining the card on ESPN 2. Time for Arreola to sweep up the pieces from the Adamek fight, put it back together, get on board. He should win this fight by a stoppage, I would think. Depends on what kind of shape he's in, too. On Telefutura, for those of you who have it, Eloy Perez taking on Derek Campos, 8-round junior lightweight fight. Carlos Molino taking on Glenn Gonzalez. It looks like a prospect card. Coming from Pico Rivera, California. From Tampa, Florida, though, on Telemundo, and I think I've got that one. Ernesto Cepeda taking on Jesus Pabon, 12 rounds welterweight. Luis Franco taking on Yogli Herrera, 8 rounds featherweight. Alright, another card. And on the 14th, which is Saturday, at Montreal, HBO, Juan Pascal taking on Chad Dawson for the Vacant Ring magazine and Pascal's WBC lightweight belt. This is for the real light heavyweight championship of the world. Most people think that Dawson has the inside edge, and he sort of does, style-wise. But here's my thinking about this. People are asking on the channel, has Pascal, have a chance? He's got a real good chance. He's at home. He's the one that's improving significantly every fight. We can see with our eyes his improvement. Every fight he's improving, from his loss to Frosh, to his big wins against Diakonu. He's improving steadily every fight, and he's been making an impression. I think Dawson has the inside. If Dawson fights a passive fight, I expect Pascal to win. If they both fight at their best, I expect Dawson to pull it out. But if Dawson fights passive like he's done in the past, I expect Pascal to pull this out. It's a pick 'em fight. I'd like to see a good performance by the person that wins. I don't want to see a sloppy or a slack performance, and I'm good with either guy winning this fight, because this is a fight that needed to be made, and I think Pascal should be grateful he's getting this chance, and Dawson should be grateful that Pascal's there. Very good technical fight. Don't expect it to be high action. It's going to be highly technical. That's on HBO from Montreal on the 14th, unless it's been called off and I don't know about it. Fox Sports Net or Fox Espanol at Laredo, Texas. Ji-Hoon Kim taking on Miguel Vasquez. 12 rounds for the vacant IBF lightweight title. And Miguel Angel Mikey Garcia taking on Cornelius Locke. 12 rounds for an IBF featherweight eliminator. That's on Fox Sports Net, Fox Espanol. Let me see if there's anything else. Hasim Rahman's fighting, not on TV, in Norfolk, Virginia, against Damon Reed in a 10-round heavyweight fight, also that night. And nothing again until Monroe, Louisiana, the following week. That's going to do it for this edition of Boxing Info. I will try to get another video up. I'm trying to pick out the perfect day and time to do this. Now that I got to get up super early to get a child off to school, I may be able to do this early in the morning and have a video up on Monday afternoon. We're going to try. Thanks everybody who has been patient. Thank you for staying with me. I'll try to answer your questions on the channel comments as best I can. Thank you, thank you, thank you. 3 times thank you. Goodbye.